Thank you so much for that musical number. That was a beautiful song. Okay, so one day there was a missionary and he had just finished his work for the day and he was headed home when he came upon a lamp on the road. So he picked it up and he started to wipe it off when a genie appeared to him. And the genie said, "Alrighty, you have one wish. That's it. One wish, one condition. You can't ask for any more wishes. Alrighty, what's it going to be?" And the missionary was like, "Oh, I want a path that takes me from here to Hawaii." And the genie was like, "What? No. Okay, that's way too much work. You got to get the poles that go all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, and you got to fill it up. And not to mention it goes on for thousands and thousands of miles, and there's all of these lanes. That's just too much work. Just choose something else." And then the missionary says, "Okay, well, I want to not have to wake up at 6:30 every morning." And the genie says, "Alrighty, do you want 2 lanes or 4? But in all seriousness, it's really, really good to be back. I'm so excited to be reporting to you guys and reporting to you guys about my mission in the Texas Houston South area, Spanish speaking. While I was thinking about all of these experiences and stories that I wanted to tell, there were a couple that kind of just kept popping into my mind. So I'm going to jump right into it. And the first one comes from a quote that I absolutely loved, and it said that the greatest lesson that we can learn in mortality is when God speaks and we listen, we will always be right. So I want to tell you guys a little story about my friend Gonzalo. Most of the time when I was involved in the process of someone getting baptized, I would either leave right before they got baptized or I'd get there right as they were getting baptized, and I always wanted to be there for like the process from the beginning to the end. And that's what Gonzalo was for me. I called him my little mission miracle. And we found it one night. It was like a Sunday night, and it was 8:30, and we were at night, and we were kind of just out knocking, and we knocked on his door, and we shared a message, and we set up an appointment to go back. And just a little side tangent that doesn't really have anything to do with this. So Houston is one of the most diverse places in the nation. So I met people from all around the world. Romania, I met people from Afghanistan, I met people from Europe, but because I was Spanish speaking, I met someone from just about every southern country. And Gonzalo was from Argentina, and there's not a lot of people from Argentina. I've only met a couple, and he was the first one I met from Argentina, my comp too. So we've only known this guy for like 3 minutes. And at the end, we're finishing up, and my comp goes, "Can we take a picture with you?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, oh no!" And he was like, "Yeah." It was the most awkward photo I've ever been a part of, and you can see it in their faces in the photo. And we were walking away, and I turned to my comp. I was like, "Why did you ask him to take a photo? He's not going to want us back." And she's like, "I don't know. He's from Argentina." And I was like, "Okay, alrighty." But it's okay though, because Gonzalo still makes fun of me for it to this day, and he still came to the church. Anyways, so we were teaching him, and things were going well, and he was progressing, and he was coming to church, and he was starting to keep commitments. And so me and my comp were like, "Alrighty, we're going to pray to see if it's his time. We're going to ask God if he wants us to extend a baptismal invite." So we prayed, we felt good about it, and we went up to Gonzalo, and we had our awesome baptism, we extended the invite, and he said no. And we were kind of like, I was not expecting that. So we'll just give him some more time. We'll let him, think more about it, learn some more. And so time goes by, and he's doing really good. I mean, this guy hasn't missed a week of church. He's reading the Book of Mormon. He knows that he wants to get baptized. So we pray about it again, and we feel good about it. And so we go, and we extend the invite again, and he says no. And we're like, okay. I don't really know what to do now. So you can imagine leaving that lesson. We were in the car, and I was feeling kind of sad. And I was kind of like, "God, I thought that's what you wanted us to do. I feel like I've done everything that I could. I prayed for him. We taught him the lessons. We brought members with us. He's been doing so good. I don't know what else to do. So the rest of this is just in your hands." And then later that night, Gonzalo texted us and told us, "Hermanas, I want to get baptized in 2 weeks." And that was the first time in my life that I legitimately have burst into tears out of joy, because I didn't know what to do with myself. And I was so happy. So I want to pause the story there for a second. Did we do God's will? Yes. Were we successful the first time? No. Were we successful the second time? No. But we had full confidence that that's what God wanted us to do. Sometimes God wants us to fail when we do His will because He wants to see if that failure is going to stop us or if it's going to help strengthen us. It's just like in the story of Nephi. When he went back to get the plates, was he successful the first couple times? No. And he ended up getting beaten half to death with a rod by his brothers. But he still knew that he was doing God's will. And even though he may have failed a little bit in the beginning, he still eventually had success in those miracles. And so nothing brings us more joy than the Spirit that comes with us as we are obedient. So I'm going to put a pin in that for a second, and we're going to move on to the next topic. And I'll finish Gonzalo's story in a second. So, sacrifice. A religion that does not require sacrifice of all things never has the power sufficient to produce the faith necessary unto life and salvation. So that begs the question, when was the last time that you guys made a righteous sacrifice? How long has it been? And what does the Lord ask us to sacrifice? Is it maybe bad friends or maybe bad language, a job that makes us work on Sunday? And what if that's what He asks, then what holds us back from making that sacrifice? Is it fear of the unknown? Is it the fear of what others were going to say, or just not knowing exactly what to expect? Leaving on the mission was a hard sacrifice. It's hard to leave your friends and your family and everything that you know and kind of just jump into this new world. But I've had too many miracles, and I've seen too many amazing things, and had so many amazing experiences, ever regret for 1 second my mission. So, to move on with Gonzalo's story, he got baptized. And in our mission, you could go to the temple with people when they get baptized, when they go to the temple for their first time. They do baptisms. And he passed the sacrament for his first time. And during this process of us teaching him, the elders were teaching a family that had just gotten here from Colombia. So they didn't know the language, they didn't know the culture, they were just like disoriented, had no idea what was going on, and they were all like 5 guys that were around Gonzalo's age, so he took them in under their wing, and they'd go to English class, they would go play soccer, Gonzalo would go like take them out to eat, and they would just hang out and have a good time. He would join the elders with the lessons, and eventually he ended up baptizing a couple people from that family. And it was so cool to be a part of this amazing experience where you get to just see not only Gonzalo changing, but his friends too, and the amazing experience and the amazing things that he did for them. He didn't go above and beyond. He was just their friend, and he just wanted to help them, and it was so cool. If anything strengthened my testimony on missionary work, that would be the story that I would tell. I'm so grateful that God let me have a part in that. And I also think that there's a lot that we can learn from Gonzalo on sacrifice, because when you're coming into the church, there's a lot of new things, and there are some things that you do ultimately have to end up sacrificing. And Gonzalo gave those up, and he was so much happier because he knew that he was following God's will, and not only that, but his sacrifice led to the conversion of the other people around him that were his friends. And so we're going to put a pin in that story and move on to the next part, consecration. What is consecration? It's dedicating something to a sacred purpose. It's what I like to call the mental part of the gospel. It's doing something good, not because you know you have to or you feel obligated to, but it's doing something something good because you want to. So I think that there's a part in every mission where a missionary has to decide if they're going to stay out because they want to, or stay out because they have to, they feel obligated. And I kind of wanted to share my story a little bit with this. So around my 9 months, I was kind of having a hard time. I won't go into the details, but it was mainly just a lack of motivation. And another part of it was, I don't know if you guys know anything about a Houston summer, and if you don't, you're probably lucky, but it'll get up to 110, but because it's like 100% humidity, it legitimately feels like 130. And I'm not joking, it literally feels like 130 outside. And I was in the only sisters biking area in the whole mission for that summer. And anyways, it was a struggle. And one day, these senior missionaries decided to randomly take me and my comp out to lunch, and I just felt like I should ask him for a blessing. So I got a blessing from this amazing missionary named Elder Roberts, and in it, he said that I that the atonement is there to be a strength for me, and that I can rely on it as a source of motivation for the rest of my mission. And that kind of took me off guard, because whenever I thought of the atonement, I thought of, we can be forgiven for the things that we do, and we change. I never thought of it as a source of motivation. So that line played over and over and over in my head, and eventually I found myself on my knees, and I was asking God for the motivation and for the strength and the desire that I needed to be the missionary that He needed me to be, and to be out here because I wanted to. And so I got in bed, and when I woke up the next morning, I felt like my battery had recharged. I was ready to be a missionary. I was so excited for what the day held, and it just felt like I had more of a pep in my step when I was doing my work. And so when there were other moments like that in my mission where I felt like maybe I was lacking motivation, I'd get down on my knees and I would ask God for the motivation that I needed, and He gave it to me every single time. And I think that we can apply that to all aspects of our life. God asks for a lot. He asks for a lot of our time, He asks for our heart and our soul, and it's not easy. And we can lose motivation, and our battery can drain. But the best part is that we can pray and we can ask God for that motivation. And we can ask Him to help us do His will and have the desire to do His will. And so we're going to put a pin in that, and I'm going to tell you guys one more story. So in our mission, we have this thing called Win the Morning, where you jump out of bed at 6:30, you get on your knees and pray, and then you put on your shoes and you go work out. But the thing is, I'm not a morning person. So most of the time, it consisted of me sliding out of bed onto my knees, praying to God for an ounce of strength to open my eyes and wipe the crusty mascara from my face, and then go out and face the army of the Gulf Coast mosquitoes with the full knowledge that I still had 16 hours left to be awake. And I did it. I was not perfect, but I did it, and it was really, really hard for me. There's a lot of things that are going to be hard for you guys. It's going to be harder to do the little things, to read your scriptures every day, to go to church every week, to go to the temple, to do service. It's hard to do all of these little things, but we can do it. With God's help, we can do it. So, if you ever feel like you're not good enough, or maybe you failed too many times, or if you ever feel like there are a lot of things that you lack, I want you guys to know that you're right. You aren't good enough. But that's kind of the point. That's exactly why Jesus Christ came here. He came here because we're not perfect. He came here because we're sinful in nature, and that life is hard, and He wanted to help us. And He loves us so much that He couldn't even imagine us not being with Him when we all pass on to the next life. And so He came down and He suffered for us because He loves us. So, yes, it's hard, but we can do it. With God, we can do it. Yo estoy muy agradecida por mi misión en Houston. Yo estoy muy agradecida por la gente que yo conocí. Me encanta la obra misional, y yo tengo un testimonio muy fuerte que esa iglesia es verdadera, y que esa iglesia es la misma iglesia que Jesús estableció cuando estaba en la tierra. Y yo digo esas cosas en el nombre de Jesucristo. Amén.